Okay, well, last story for tonight, and this one isn't political. So if you hung around this long for 40 minutes and listened to me bitch about politics, you get something that's non-political. But, oh man, movie theaters are real pissed off at Disney. Movie theaters are real pissed off at Disney. So, if you think about the year that movie theaters just had, man, poor guys. AMC movie theaters, I follow really close because I own some of their stock and I enjoy the company. I actually was a fan of their company and owned their stock before they became the meme stock and went all crazy. So that was kind of cool. Made some free money there. Sold at like $20 a share, which I shouldn't have because now it's at like $40 a share. But I've kind of been a huge movie fan my entire life. And then in my adult life, I've been really fascinated about the economics of movies. Like, what do people get paid? And do actors get paid on the front end or the back end? And what do movie theaters make? And how do they get paid? And what's the fall off rate between week 1 and week 2 when there's a huge new movie release, right? And if you look at the percentage of the box office that Disney intellectual properties, whether that's Star Wars, Marvel, Disney character movies, sports movies that they produce through ESPN or whatnot, if you look at the percentage of the box office that's owned by Disney, it's astronomical. Maybe Chris can look this up, but I think the last time I looked, the Disney suite of properties. So, again, you got Marvel, you got Star Wars, you've got all their cartoon catalog. I think there was something like 20%, 25% of the overall movie theater revenue. And some years it's been even higher than that. Well, movie theaters count on these huge tentpole Marvel, Star Wars releases to make these theaters profitable. And all these theaters are trying to hang on for, what has been a devastating year for them financially. Chris, were you able to see like what percentage of the box office is Disney? He's still looking, but he'll give me a hand signal or something when he gets back to it. So why are the movie theaters pissed? The movie theaters are pissed because, here we go.
33%.
33%. So just the Disney suite of intellectual property.
38% if you count Fox.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's right, because Disney bought Fox. So now they're 38% of all movie revenue at the box office, right? So the movie theaters count on Disney in a big way for the survival of these movie theaters. And this last weekend, the movie Black Widow came out, and Disney decided to do two things. They decided to release it in the theaters as they normally do, and they decided to release it on Disney Plus for their enhanced premium of like $30 to buy the movie. So you get Disney Plus for $12, $13 a month, or I think it's $90 a year or something. And then if you want a new release like Black Widow, and they'd previously done this with Ryu, and they previously did this with Mulan, you can pay $30. And now I own Black Widow through the Disney Plus suite of products or a suite of videos. And so what happened was interesting, and I was looking over the numbers. Usually a Marvel movie will do $100 to $200 million in the first weekend that it's open in a movie theater. I think Black Panther probably took number one at like 280 million in the first weekend. And then I think Avengers Endgame beat that with like the first movie ever that made like 300 million in its first weekend. So huge numbers, and a percentage of that obviously goes to the movie theater, or a percentage of that goes back to the studio that made the movie. And what happened was Black Widow debuted 158 million at the global box office. The numbers that I saw put it at about $80 million its opening weekend here in the United States, which is way underperforming until you consider that Disney also made $60 million on Disney Plus subscribers like me who wanted to watch the movie from my couch and pay $30, right? Because for me, my kids, my wife, and a friend that was over, for us to pay $30 to all see it on my TV, which is pretty decent, not quite movie theater quality, that was cheaper than dropping $100 for us all to go to the movies. But there's two problems with this. There's a lot of problems with this if you're the movie theater franchises who wrote a pretty scathing letter to Disney. One is that Disney is now becoming a direct competitor of video on demand in that all sacred opening weekend, which is when movie theaters make most of their money, right? So Disney is basically saying to the movie theaters, hey, we know we've counted on you for these big releases and to get the movies out. Like, you guys are the distribution network for our platform, for Disney movies, for the last 100 years. But now we kind of have our own distribution platform through Disney Plus. So F you movie theaters, we're going to do what we want. And if you think about it, I would have gone to the theater to see this movie if I couldn't get it video on demand through Disney Plus. And so, let's see, myself, my 5-year-old, don't judge. My 5-year-old, I let him watch it. My 19-year-old watched it. My wife watched it. We had 2 friends over who watched it. So that's 6. And, there's a possibility that a friend of mine maybe also has the password to my Disney Plus. So maybe he and a couple friends watched it. So maybe 8 or 9 people watched the movie for $30. Presumably all of those people, or at least 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9 of those people would have gone to the theater to watch the movie. And this would have been revenue that went into the pocket of the theaters. And what the theaters are arguing is they're saying, hey, because Disney has created a bunch of super fans and a bunch of nerds who want to watch every Star Wars movie and every Marvel movie, multiple times, Disney, if you'll just hold off for 2 weeks, if you'll let us do our thing at the theater, not only are you taking revenue out of our pocket up front, you're taking revenue out of your own pocket because those people will buy the movie again on Disney Plus, right? So the theater owner's argument is, let us have a crack, or the first bite at the apple for the first couple weeks that it's open. Then if you want to go video on demand, go video on demand for kind of all those laggards who probably aren't going to go see the movie at the theater, and the super fans, who wanted to see the movie the first weekend it came out will probably still buy the movie on Disney Plus because they want to watch it again, or they want to talk about it with their friends, or they want to, miss the post-closing credit scene that they had to run to the bathroom after the movie was over and they missed it. And so the theaters are making a really good argument that not only is Disney basically spitting in the face of the distribution network that has helped make Disney, but that Disney's also cannibalizing their own profit model by saying, hey, you could have made more money by letting us have the movie exclusively in the theater for a couple of weeks, giving you a big percentage of that box office, and then you turn around and sell it on Disney Plus in 3 or 4 weeks, and you're still going to have that same $60 million in revenue because the nerds like Scott are still going to buy the movie and spend the extra $30. And so it's really interesting, and it turns out that there's a really good metric for seeing if the movie theaters were right? And the metric is, what's the first week fall off? So normally speaking, if a movie makes $100 million its opening weekend, which is going to be like a big Disney type franchise, or a big Tom Cruise movie or something like that. So if a movie makes like 100 million plus the first weekend that it's open, you can expect the fall off for the second week to be somewhere between 30 and 45%. So if a movie makes, $40 million or $100 million on week 1, it's pretty reasonable based on word of mouth. If it's a decent movie, people that didn't want to bother with the crowds of the first weekend, that same movie will make somewhere between, $45 and $65 million week 2. And if it's a really great movie, it'll make, 65 to 85 million because there's good word of mouth. A lot of people want to go see it. That happened with some of the big Marvel movies. Like, I think that happened with Ant-Man, and it happened with Black Panther, famously happened with Interstellar. Really good second week numbers because a lot of people who saw it in the first week either went back to see it a second time or told all their friends what a great movie it was. Well, Black Widow made about $80 million domestically in week 1 and $26 million on week 2. So a massive, almost 75%, no, not 75%, about 65% fall off from week 1 to week 2. So the theater owners were able to go back to Disney and say, hey, not only did you screw us, not only you're spitting in our face, not only are you leaving money on the table, we now have statistical evidence that there was this huge fall off on week 2, and Black Widow is pretty well reviewed. It's got a good Rotten Tomatoes score. So it's not like there was a huge fall off because the movie was shitty and everybody that saw it said it was a shitty movie. No, people are generally saying it's a good movie, but there was no motivation for people to go to the movies to see it a second time, or for that word of mouth to build and people to come in to see the movie the second week because they could just buy it on Disney Plus. And the problem is once you can buy it on Disney Plus, you also have piracy issues. You also have people sharing their password issues. So I think Disney's made a big blunder here. And now that they've kind of let the genie out of the bottle and now set the expectation with consumers like myself that I'll be able to either watch it in the theater or watch it on my home video system the same week, that's going to be my new expectation, right? And I'm trust me, I'm somebody who loves going to the theaters. I love paying $27 for a popcorn and a Dr. Pepper and just enjoying it. And it's quiet. And it's like you can't look at your cell phone for a couple hours. There's no distractions. I love going to the movies, but I'm still probably going to frequently opt into buying it video on demand if it's available the same weekend. And I think the theaters are appropriately and accurately arguing to Disney that they've screwed this model up. And I'm hoping that this is not the nail in the coffin for theaters, because they've obviously had, one of the businesses that had the roughest year during COVID. I'm hoping they can make it. I love movies. I love the excitement of going into the theater and seeing like a first weekend release movie. And I'm hoping the movie theaters and Disney can figure this out, but more to come. And as much as it will also kind of bother me, because I like having maximum options and maximum choice, I hope they do get away from video demand on that opening weekend. Let the theaters have 2 or 3 weeks of the movie being only in the theater, and then let anybody who doesn't feel comfortable going to the theater buy it video on demand or buy it on Disney Plus. I hope that's what they work out, because man, going to the movies is just such like a backbone activity of being an American in my mind, especially when I was a teenager, and it's something I want my kids to look forward to. So for nostalgic purposes and the fact that I love the theaters, I hope they work this out and they figure it out.